My name is Liam, and I'm just your average American guy, a hardworking electrician who loves a good challenge and takes pride in a job well done. I live in a cozy house with my wife Amelia in a quiet town. Amelia and I have been married for 8 years. She's a smart, driven woman, a sociology professor at the local university. Our life together has been pretty good, or so I thought. We had plans, dreams, and our share of laughter and disagreements, just like any couple. But recently, things had started to feel off. It was around 6 p.m. on a Wednesday when I finally walked through the front door. I'd stayed late at work to wrap up a wiring project that my supervisor, Lucas Ross, had handed me earlier that day. Even though it left me with aching muscles, I managed to finish the job almost half a day ahead of schedule. Amelia, my wife, had left for a 3-day seminar in Columbus that morning, leaving me the house to myself and the chance to focus entirely on work. Initially, I had wanted to go with her, but we had a spring break cruise planned, and the tickets were proudly displayed in our china cabinet, a reminder of better times ahead. When I realized there wasn't a message from Amelia about her safe arrival, I felt a bit uneasy and decided to give her a call. Using the home phone, I dialed her cell. She picked up after just 2 rings, sounding unusually happy to hear from me, and mentioned she was just about to call. I wasn't surprised she knew it was me, since our home phone displayed my number. "Got that mind-reading thing down to an art, huh?" I joked. "So, did you make it there okay? How was the traffic? Hope the car's still in one piece." I chuckled, imagining her rolling her eyes at my comment. If we were face-to-face, she'd probably stick her tongue out at me. With it being January, I was a bit worried about snow on the roads. She laughed, reassuring me that everything was fine. The traffic was light, and she found the hotel easily, thanks to the map I printed for her. "You know I'd do anything for you, darling. Nothing's too much for my Amelia," I said, still feeling a bit stung from her earlier refusal to let me join her on the trip. "No, you're not coming," she had said firmly, wanting to wait until spring break for a trip together. "Yeah, I know. Just teasing, Amelia," I replied, masking my disappointment with a laugh. "I'll be a good boy and stay home." I could hear the relief in her voice when she said, "Glad to hear it, Liam. It'll be a boring few days with all these seminars. We wouldn't have any time together anyway." "Reading my mind again, Amelia? Need to talk about something?" I asked. "Oh, you reminded me. I can't find my travel bag with the sewing kit and stuff. Maybe it's in the bedroom or the car trunk." "Sure thing, babe. Hold on, let me grab the cordless." I hurried upstairs and spotted the bag on the dresser. "Found it," I said into the phone. "Be careful with buttons and lint." She sighed in relief, mentioning she might check a nearby store for replacements. "Gotta go. Registration's open. Busy week ahead with presentations and dinners. But we'll have Saturday evening together." "No worries, hun. Worked extra today, so I should be good through Thursday and Friday. Call me if you can. I'll do the same if anything comes up. See you Saturday for dinner." After we hung up, I went downstairs, my mind swirling with thoughts of Amelia's recent behavior. She had been acting strangely for months, and her rejection of my joke about joining her on the trip didn't help. Hungry and a bit distracted, I ordered a pizza. With about 40 minutes to spare until it arrived, I changed out of my work uniform and grabbed a beer, settling down at the kitchen table. My job kept me fit, so I didn't worry about indulging in pizza, especially since Amelia wasn't a fan. Leftovers would be lunch tomorrow. I tried to focus on a news program on TV, but kept thinking about Amelia and her odd behavior. It bothered me how strongly she opposed me joining her on this trip. Amelia, 35, was tall and slender, with long dark hair and piercing eyes. As a sociology professor, she was proud of her accomplishments and often spoke of her heavy workload. Thankfully, she had a teaching assistant, Marcos, a senior who helped with grading and advising. Marcos's name used to come up a lot, but lately not so much. Back in November, she had mentioned seminars over the New Year break and seemed open to me joining her. But 2 weeks later, she changed her mind, preferring a spring break trip instead. I had reluctantly accepted her decision. Over Christmas, we didn't talk about seminars, enjoying the holidays with family and friends instead. Amelia received envelopes with training materials, quickly sending back her registration, and started packing well before New Year's Eve, her organized nature shining through. Later that evening, I went back to the bedroom, planning to pick up a book I had left on the bedside table. I noticed Amelia's travel bag, and moved it to its usual spot in the closet, spotting her journal underneath. Married for 8 years, I rarely saw her diary, which she kept well hidden. Once, I had jokingly asked to read it, but she firmly refused, calling it personal and private. We never brought it up again, and in all our years together, I had only glimpsed it a couple of times before she quickly locked it away. I suspected she wrote in it either at her college office or at home while I was at work. Our schedules rarely aligned. She was home when I left and leave when I returned. Curious about her recent odd behavior, I picked up the journal instead of putting it back. The 6x 8-inch red leather book, about an inch thick, had a brass lock and latch. I wondered if it held any clues to what was going on with Amelia. Instead of returning it to the dresser, I took it downstairs to the brighter kitchen. Examining it closely, I saw that only about a third of the pages were used, meaning it couldn't possibly hold 8 years' worth of entries. There had to be older volumes. Realizing she might have more diaries hidden somewhere, I guessed her closet was the best place to look. We each had our own, and I had never explored hers. Heading upstairs, I searched for about 5 minutes before finding a shoebox on the top shelf, containing a stack of red leather diaries. I returned to the kitchen with my find. Each diary had a small white sticker on the spine, numbered 1 through 6, while the current one was unnumbered. Embossed on the back cover of each was the name Coombs, a local specialty store. All 7 locks were identical, with no distinguishing marks. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't help myself. I had to know what was in those journals. Maybe they held the answers to why Amelia had been acting so strange lately. I sat down at the kitchen table, the stack of diaries in front of me, and took a deep breath. It was time to find out the truth. I couldn't shake the thought that all the diaries might use the same key. Curiosity got the better of me, so I grabbed the phone book and quickly found the number for Coombs Specialties. It was around 8:35 p.m., and I hoped they were still open since many downtown stores stayed open late on Wednesdays. After 2 rings, a young woman answered, "Coombs Specialties, how can I help you?" Her voice was warm and inviting. I asked about red leather diaries around 6x 8 inches, saying I wanted to buy one as a gift. "I think I know what you're referring to. Let me check," she said, pausing for about 3 minutes. When she returned, she confirmed they had 2 in stock and that the store was open until 10 p.m. I didn't waste any time heading there, hoping to get a diary and maybe a key to unlock Amelia's. The chances were slim, but I knew trying to force the lock could damage it and earn me Amelia's wrath. In less than half an hour, I was on my way home with a red leather diary and a key in my bag. Despite the $60 cost, I considered it a small price to pay to uncover what was troubling my wife. I thought about giving the new diary to Amelia as a birthday present, imagining various scenarios. Amelia had a habit of keeping things from me, like the time she concealed an abnormal pap test result. I wondered if she might be hiding another health scare or dealing with workplace issues. A darker possibility gnawed at me, the idea that Amelia might be having an affair. I pushed the thought away, unwilling to believe it. Despite our physical differences, I'm shorter with blonde hair and blue eyes, while she's tall and slender. We've known each other since high school. We dated briefly, then parted ways. I became an electrician's apprentice, and Amelia went on to college. We reunited there and quickly got married after her graduation. Now a master electrician, I had bought a home, and we were planning to upgrade to a bigger house and start a family. We decided Amelia would stop taking birth control pills by the end of the school year. Back home, I examined the new diary's key. It came in a small envelope inside the diary box, but it looked too small to fit the lock on Amelia's journal. I realized I should have asked the store clerk about the key's compatibility. If it didn't fit, I'd have to give up the idea of unlocking her diary rather than hunt for Amelia's hidden keys. Minutes later, I sat at the kitchen table with a stack of diaries in front of me. I wrestled with the decision of whether to try the key on Amelia's current journal. My worry for her well-being and relentless curiosity pushed me forward, but I hesitated, fearing I'd violate her trust. Ultimately, I couldn't resist. To my surprise, the key fit perfectly. As I flipped through the pages, I found her recent entries dated just the previous day. Scanning her neat handwriting, my face went pale, and tears filled my eyes. I moved to the kitchen sink, squeezing my soda can until it overflowed onto my arm. Noticing the mess, I cleaned up and retreated to the living room. I placed the diaries on the end table, turned on the lamp, and settled into my chair, bracing myself to uncover the truth about my wife and our life together. Instead of starting from the most recent entry, I decided to read the diaries in chronological order, hoping to find answers. Confronting Amelia at the hotel crossed my mind, but I dismissed it, fearing an emotional breakdown. The first page, dated early June, began my journey through Amelia's thoughts. Despite entries expressing contentment with her life, career, and marriage, none from the summer months explained the shocking revelation I had read on the last page. But by early September, I found a crucial entry that hinted at the answers I sought. I read it twice to be sure. On September 8th, Amelia wrote about meeting her new teaching assistant, Marcos Turner. She described him as slightly taller than her, with black hair, dark eyes, and a short beard, noting his impressive qualifications. I searched for more mentions of Marcos, but found none in the following entries. Amelia seemed content, but a bit anxious about handling a large class of over 100 students. By September 15th, she detailed how Marcos helped her manage the class, answering students' questions while she prepared lecture materials. She noted that her female students seemed to like him, comparing him to a young Leonardo DiCaprio. As I read further, Marcos's name appeared more frequently, making me scrutinize the passages closely. On September 20th, Amelia mentioned that classes were going as usual, with a few students dropping out due to difficulty. She observed Marcos watching her during lectures from the front row and planned to give him more responsibilities. By September 24th, Amelia wrote about working on a reading assignment when Marcos visited her office to help. She also mentioned wanting to discuss having children with me, marking the first time this topic appeared in her diary. By September 30th, Amelia noticed Marcos's constant attention during lectures, despite her disapproving glances. Female students flocked to him with questions, showing more interest in him than in her. Despite this, Amelia was pleased with her students' progress and the pressures of being a full professor. Subsequent entries didn't mention Marcos, leaving me with more questions than answers. Amelia had been optimistic about her classes and told me she wanted to discuss our plans to start a family after her first year as a full professor. She aimed for us to start trying for a baby at the end of the school year. On October 8th, she excitedly shared this decision with Marcos. His supportive reaction led to an unexpected hug in her office, though she quickly reminded him to be mindful of their professional setting. On October 10th, Amelia felt uneasy when Marcos locked her office door during a visit, but he unlocked it when she asked. His brief stay left her questioning his intentions. The next day, Marcos returned to help her, expressing a preference for mature women and apologizing for the previous day's behavior. Although she was happily married, Amelia found his attention flattering and was intrigued by his interest in her over the younger women at the college. By October 13th, Amelia was looking forward to Marcos's visits, but she felt disappointed when he didn't show up. She wanted to delve deeper into his comments about mature women. 2 days later, she hoped Marcos would stay after the students left her office, but he left before she could engage in conversation. On October 16th, she finally had a chance to speak with Marcos, who explained that his preference for mature women came from past experiences. She regretted not setting clearer boundaries and was troubled by the encounter. Reading this entry made my stomach churn. Amelia's reaction wasn't what I had expected. I left the diary open and grabbed a new can of soda before returning to read more about the situation with Marcos. On October 20th, just before leaving work, Marcos barged into Amelia's office and ignored her request to leave the door open. He confessed he had been thinking about her constantly and asked for a longer kiss, claiming it was his birthday. Feeling uneasy, Amelia agreed to get rid of him. Later, she realized his birthday was in July and felt tricked but laughed it off. She was worried about his intentions and resolved to be more cautious around him. The next entry showed that Marcos was absent, as Amelia focused on grading tests and essays. I found it odd that he wasn't around, but the journal didn't explain his absence. On October 30th, Amelia wrote, "Today something happened that's hard for me to explain. Marcos came into my office, locked the door behind him, and pulled me toward him before I could protest. I felt ashamed for not stopping him sooner. When I finally pushed him away, he insisted I enjoyed it. I asked him to leave, but he smirked and said he'd see me tomorrow. I'm struggling to handle this situation. I feel trapped and unsure if I should tell Liam. Worse, I can't stop thinking about Marcos. Reading this entry repeatedly filled me with a rage I didn't know I was capable of. By November 2nd, Amelia wrote, I finally stopped worrying about Liam noticing anything unusual. The first night was tough, but he didn't suspect a thing despite my anxiety. It made me realize how easy it is to keep secrets from him. On November 6th, she noted, it's been days since I was alone with Marcos. Even when he's in class, he still stares at me, making me feel uneasy. I wonder how I'll react if he comes to my office again. 2 days later, she wrote, Marcos visited my office today, but others were present. He kissed me quickly before leaving, making me uncomfortable. Despite that, I'm considering attending a seminar series in Columbus after the new year. The November 9th entry was gut-wrenching. Yesterday was another difficult day. Marcos's behavior is getting worse, and I'm starting to worry about how this will end if I don't do something soon. Despite trying to focus on work, Marcos managed to enter my office unnoticed. When he tried to kiss me, I hesitated before briefly giving in. Regaining control, I pushed him away and retreated to the bathroom, overwhelmed with guilt and fear of Liam finding out. Marcos, unapologetic, left after saying he wanted more. Although upset, I composed myself before Liam came home, hiding my distress as we talked through the evening. Seething with anger, I reviewed the entry repeatedly, focusing on the incident with Marcos. Despite this, I noted a lack of mentions regarding Marcos or their relationship in Amelia's diary for the following week, which gave me some relief. On November 17th, she wrote, I'm caught in a confusing situation. Marcos's hold over me is stronger than I thought. I can't tell if it's his demeanor or my own vulnerability, but I feel powerless around him. This afternoon, I confronted him about our previous encounters, stressing how inappropriate it was given my marriage and our professional relationship. Despite my firm stance, he suggested we lock the office door and invited me to sit with him on the couch. For reasons I can't explain, I agreed. We crossed a dangerous line, and now I'm torn between wanting to fire him and justifying our actions. I can never confess to Liam, and I'm relieved our indiscretions are hidden in the privacy of my office. I need to pull myself together before going home. Reading Amelia's diaries, I couldn't believe how deep this situation had gotten. Determined to understand her actions, I dove back into the pages. It was already 2 a.m., but I couldn't put the diary down. I left a message at work, saying I'd be unavailable due to personal reasons. My life felt like it had been turned upside down, with love and hope replaced by a deep emptiness and seething anger. I finished my soda in the bathroom and returned to the living room, my mind racing with everything I'd read. Just 8 hours ago, I was chatting with Amelia, completely oblivious to what was happening. On November 22nd, Amelia wrote, Marcos stopped by the office today, but I kept my distance, staying behind my desk. He behaved appropriately and didn't try to lock the door. My guilt kept me from engaging with him. I think he sensed my determination to keep things professional. I hope I can stick to this resolve. Her upbeat mood as the semester ended seemed like a cruel joke. By November 23rd, she had told me about the seminars, and I was supportive, even offering to go with her. Things had shifted dramatically from November 23rd to mid-December. On November 25th, Marcos visited her office again, wanting to come to our home. She firmly said no and emphasized it wasn't an option. He asked about me, suggesting he visit my place. She shot that down too, despite his persistence. He acted interested in the seminars, even though they were faculty only. On November 30th, she wrote, Yesterday was awful. I feel so lost. I couldn't sleep, and Liam noticed I was upset. I wish I could tell him, but I can't find the words. Marcos haunts my dreams. Even though I don't have feelings for him, I'm tormented by our encounters. When he locked the door, I stood there, unable to stop him, even though my mind was screaming at me to do something. After he left, I cried and felt so much regret. I stayed locked in my office all day, wrestling with my thoughts. Maybe I need therapy. I couldn't understand why Amelia acted this way. It was so unlike her. As I read more, I felt darker and more disturbed. On December 3rd, she wrote, Marcos cornered me in the hallway today, asking me to reconsider meeting him at his place. He wanted to be close to me in a real bed, but I refused, reminding him of the risks to my marriage and career. He didn't give up, suggesting he come to the January seminars, even offering to pay his own way if I'd spend nights with him. I rejected him, But his words stuck with me. I questioned my own strength. Seething with anger, I took a break to calm down. I resisted the urge to drink, needing to think clearly. I knew I needed a solid plan. Back in the living room, I continued reading. On December 7th, she wrote, Marcos stopped by my office to say goodbye before his Christmas trip. He has an exam tomorrow. He asked if he could come back early for the seminar, suggesting I could use it as a distraction. I told him to call me in a few days. On December 8th, she wrote, Today I lied to Liam, convincing him to stay home while I attend a seminar. I suggested a cruise to distract him. He was hesitant, but eventually agreed. I feel terrible about deceiving him. I haven't decided if I'll take Marcos with me, but I'm thinking about it. I keep reflecting on our last encounter in my office. Even though I'm happy with Liam, I can't stop thinking about Marcos. I'm waiting for his call, wondering if he'll keep pushing or give up. On December 12th, she wrote, Marcos called again, wanting to join me in Columbus. He suggested we book adjoining rooms and pretend he's my brother. He plans to confirm tomorrow and cover the costs. Now I have to decide if I'm going to betray Liam. On December 14th, she wrote, Marcos called again, excited about our stay at the Charan. I made the reservation, feeling guilty. He's leaving after the spring semester, so he won't be my TA anymore. I hope I can resist the temptation. There's something about him that intrigues me, something I've never felt before. I'm terrified of Liam finding out. It would destroy him. On December 28th, she wrote, Marcos called me at home yesterday, using a fake name in case Liam answered. He confirmed our plans for New Year's Eve, and I reluctantly agreed. Deep down, I felt a thrill. I hoped this encounter would end our affair for good. Liam had to work, giving me the chance to make arrangements. I've never spent consecutive nights with another man since I married Liam, but I decided to go along with Marcos's plan. Maybe this would disrupt my feelings for him. I looked at the clock. It was nearly 6 in the morning. Exhausted and emotionally drained, I couldn't believe how drastically my life had changed overnight. The love and trust I had felt for Amelia were now buried under a mountain of betrayal and anger. I was nearing the end of Amelia's diaries, but felt compelled to read every single page. Although I knew she hadn't physically cheated yet, I needed to be absolutely certain. Leaving the last page unread for now, I got up to make some coffee, knowing I could rest later. On January 3rd, Amelia wrote, Tomorrow is the big day. I'm off for 3 days of seminars and nights with Marcos. I'll pick him up before leaving town and drop him off afterward. Thankfully, Liam didn't insist on coming along. I've got a map to make sure I find my way. I discovered a Victoria's Secret nearby and plan to buy outfits to wear for Marcos. It makes me uneasy, but I plan to wash them before seeing Liam. I forgot to remind Marcos about contraceptives, but we can stop by the pharmacy before checking in. I'm surprisingly excited, though I worry about Marcos expecting new things. I'll save any new experiences for our cruise, framing it as an adventure. I've started packing and hope Liam won't suspect anything. I question if I can go through with it. What happened in my office was spontaneous, but this trip is planned. I could refuse and cover Marcos's expenses, but I'm already aroused at the thought. Finishing the 7th journal, I sat there, stunned by what I'd read over the past 9 hours. A plan began forming in my mind for the next 3 days. Even if Amelia backed out of her arrangement with Marcos, our marriage was over. The trust was gone, and forgiveness seemed impossible. My love for her was quickly being replaced by a burning animosity toward Marcos. Before noon, I called a number I had found online. More investigations, how can I help you? The professional tone of the woman who answered gave me a sliver of reassurance. Do you handle divorce cases? I asked, unsure if that was the correct term, but hoping it covered what I needed. If you mean investigating cheating spouses, then yes. Would you like to speak with an investigator? Yes, please, I'm interested in your services, I replied, feeling a bit more at ease. After a brief hold, a man's voice came on the line. This is Oliver Moore. How can I assist you? I wasted no time explaining my situation. I suspect my wife is having an affair with a man at the Sharon Hotel near the airport. Can you provide photographic evidence and quote me a price? The Sharon? We can handle that. Is this ongoing, and what's the time frame? Moore asked. My wife is there until Saturday morning. She's in room 412, and the man she's with is in 414, adjoining rooms. They were there last night, too, but I only decided to take action this morning. She's attending seminars, and he's accompanying her, I explained, hoping he understood the urgency. Got it. I need more details on your surveillance preferences. Can you provide their names and descriptions? I described Amelia and offered to send a photo if needed. I also gave Marcos's full name and a vague description from Amelia's diary. It's straightforward, Mr. Miller. We can set up cameras in their rooms this afternoon and keep them there until after the weekend checkout. Installation is quick, and we have access to the rooms at a fixed rate per entry. If you only need photo evidence and no ongoing monitoring, the cost is a flat $800. Wouldn't using a single camera be cheaper? I just need confirmation they were together. I prefer to check tonight and receive the photos by tomorrow evening. We'll need cameras in both rooms since we're unsure which they'll use. Our cost covers quality equipment and access fees. Hiring a maintenance worker for 2 entries, installation and removal, adds $100. Apologies, I'm new to this. I'll pay up front by credit card on your website. Great. Fill out the form noting case number 1372A. Once paid, I'll install the cameras and send you a DVD of the footage. Please provide your name and address for delivery. The process seemed straightforward, but receiving the DVD by mail felt impractical. Could you hold on to the DVD until I reach out? Right now, I just need photos showing them together. Nothing explicit, just evidence of the affair. Understood, Mr. Miller. I'll capture stills from the video feed. I provided my phone number and made a credit card payment during the call. The investigator confirmed the payment and began arranging for the camera installation. With everything set, I finally allowed myself to succumb to exhaustion. After a nap and a quick meal, I resumed reading Amelia's diaries, this time progressing quickly without pausing to reread or overthink. As I finished the first volume, Amelia called shortly before 10 p.m. Our conversation was surprisingly smooth, both of us hiding our secrets. I wondered if it was as easy for her to conceal her plans as it was for me to hide mine. With everything arranged, I felt a strange sense of calm, though I doubted I'd ever regain a sense of normalcy. Before diving into the second volume, I double-checked my arrangements. Friday held additional tasks, including a visit to the bank to sort out finances. I had already resigned from Anderson Electric and was awaiting my final paycheck. It was well past 1 a.m. when I finished the second volume, taking longer than expected as thoughts of Amelia and Marcos haunted me. Exhausted, I lay down on the couch and, to my surprise, fell asleep, waking up at 7 a.m. Refreshed after a quick breakfast, I decided to dive back into the diaries, starting the third volume. By noon, I had finished the third and fourth volumes. Setting them aside, I knew it was time to tackle my to-do list. My first stop was Anderson Electric to collect my final paycheck and clear out my locker. Gus Anderson, the owner, tried to convince me to stay, but seeing the resolve in my eyes, he reluctantly bid me farewell, hoping I'd return someday. The paperwork at the bank took longer than expected, but I eventually walked out with a bag containing over $20,000 withdrawn from our joint and personal accounts. Though I had hoped for more, immediate funds were all I could access without Amelia's signature. I got home around 4 p.m. and checked the answering machine. There was a message from Moore Investigations. Taking a deep breath, I dialed Oliver Moore's direct line. "This is Oliver Moore. How can I assist you?" "Hello, this is Liam Miller. Were you able to install the cameras, and do you have any findings?" "Yes, Mr. Miller. We set up cameras in both rooms yesterday afternoon and reviewed the footage today. Both rooms were empty during the operation, so it was quick." I hesitated before asking, "Did anything significant show up on the footage?" My heart pounded as I awaited Oliver's response. "Well, Liam, your suspicions are confirmed. They spent the night together in your wife's room and were intimate multiple times. I've transferred the video to DVD, and if you still want them, I can email you 3 frames as you requested." Oliver's words hit me like a sledgehammer, bringing tears to my eyes. Even though I had read the diaries, seeing visual evidence made it undeniably real. "Yes, please send the pictures. Thank you, Mr. Moore. If everything is settled financially, I consider our business concluded. Yes, your payment covers everything. Are you feeling all right? Your voice sounds different today. This kind of situation can be emotionally overwhelming, and I'm concerned," Oliver remarked. "I'm okay, thank you. I'll reach out if I need anything else," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Your attorney may need a copy of the DVD unless you're pursuing grounds other than infidelity for divorce." We keep the footage for a year or until instructed otherwise. Many clients find therapy beneficial in situations like this. While it's not my area of expertise, a good therapist can make a significant difference, Oliver suggested. Thank you for your help, Mr. Moore. I have a plan to cope with this. I appreciate your professionalism, I said, ending the call before any further discussion could ensue. With a stoic expression, I sat at the kitchen table until the sound of an incoming email caught my attention. Quietly, I went to the computer and opened the email from Moore Investigations. Reviewing each of the 3 attached photos, I promptly printed them on 8x10 photo paper. Holding the evidence in my hands made the affair tangible. The photo of them lying together under a sheet bothered me the most. It marked a turning point for me emotionally. After a final look at the photos, I placed them in a brown envelope on the kitchen table. Returning to my chair, I resumed reading the 5th diary. Just before midnight, I concluded the last 2 volumes of Amelia's journals. Reflecting on the contents, I realized how closely Amelia had adhered to my perceptions of her. While there were few surprises, the diaries revealed numerous insights into our past, shedding light on aspects of our relationship I had never understood. I discovered that Amelia struggled with insecurity more than I had ever known. However, her professed love for me made her actions with Marcos even more confusing. The biggest revelation was that our initial meeting at a birthday party wasn't a coincidence. Amelia had orchestrated the encounter, eager to reconnect with me. Engrossed in the reading, I hadn't realized how late it was. Amelia hadn't called, and I was starving. I made myself a sandwich and a drink, but thoughts of Amelia and Marcos's interactions consumed me. These thoughts, along with my decision to end the marriage, kept me restless throughout the night. Whether it was the food or the vivid images of Amelia and Marcos in my mind, I couldn't find peace. At 7 a.m., I gave up trying to sleep and got up to start my meticulously planned day. With a packed agenda ahead, I needed an early start. By 8:30 a.m., I phoned my closest surviving relative, my brother Michael. We weren't estranged, but our interactions were infrequent, usually limited to obligatory holiday gatherings. Just 2 weeks earlier, Michael, his wife Evelyn, and their children Hank and Luna had visited. Michael was surprised by my unexpected morning call, but he and his family were available. I engaged with them until slightly past 10 a.m., then headed to his home. The children were eager to resume their activities, and as Evelyn brewed fresh coffee, Michael and I sat at the table, reflecting on our recent Christmas gathering. I remembered that Michael and his family were planning a trip to Disneyland during spring break. Wanting to do something nice, I handed each of Michael's kids a crisp $100 bill. Their smiles and hugs were a small comfort. "You really didn't have to do that, Liam," Michael said, looking at me with concern. "But it was kind of you. The kids are over the moon." I gave a faint smile. "No, I didn't win the lottery. I just felt like doing something nice." We sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and making small talk. Evelyn joined us and said, "I suppose I can't avoid mentioning your plans with Amelia. She told us you're thinking about starting a family. I know you'll make great parents." I paused, feeling a pang of sadness. "She shared that with you, huh? Women don't seem to hold much back." Before Evelyn could say anything more, I changed the subject. "So Michael, how's work at the restaurant?" After our coffee cups were empty, I stood up to leave. "Just in case I don't see you until next Christmas, take care." I shook Michael's hand and gave Evelyn a quick hug. "I'll keep you in my thoughts," I said, walking to my car. As I drove away, I wondered what Michael and Evelyn were thinking. Michael turned to Evelyn and said, "I wonder what's on his mind. He seemed preoccupied." Evelyn shrugged, probably just waiting for Amelia to get back from her seminar. She said she'd be back tonight. Hand in hand, they walked back to the house, talking about their plans for the rest of the day. Just before 6 o'clock in the evening, Amelia arrived home. Noticing I wasn't there, she felt a mix of relief and disappointment. She had rehearsed our reunion in her mind, but my absence threw her off. Taking advantage of the situation, she began unpacking and doing laundry. As she walked through the kitchen, she saw a note pinned under a salt shaker. It was from me, explaining I had to leave for work unexpectedly. Although disappointed, the note allowed her to continue with her plans. She headed upstairs, deciding on a relaxing bath instead of a shower. While gathering the laundry, she spotted her journal on the dresser. She remembered leaving it in her emergency bag and was relieved to find it untouched. Originally planning to update it during her trip, she had forgotten until I reminded her. She retrieved it and decided to write while the laundry was going. As her clothes washed, she made a quick meal and tried calling me, only to realize my phone was in the wicker basket. She sighed, knowing she wouldn't get an answer. Returning to the table, she unlocked her diary with the key from her wallet and began writing. January 7th. The most eventful 4 days of my life just ended, and I need to write everything down, even the unpleasant parts. When I picked up Marcos, he seemed eager. During the drive, he made advances that bothered me, but he stopped after I warned him. As we got farther from the city, I relaxed. At the mall, he joined me at Victoria's Secret, suggesting items I ended up buying. I wore one set for him Wednesday night, but disposed of it before leaving the store this morning. I've decided to discard the other sets too, not wanting reminders of my time at the Sharan. I can't erase the memories, but I'll try to move on. On Wednesday night, Marcos came to my room, and we quickly ended up in bed. After that, I understood the vast difference between physical desire and genuine love. I ended things with Marcos, but he didn't take it well. Despite my attempts to avoid conflict, he became angry. We agreed to sleep on it, but I had already started planning how to make amends with Liam. Friday morning, Marcos ignored my refusal and persisted. I locked the connecting door between our rooms, but he made plans with someone else that night. Witnessing him with another woman, I realized he preys on vulnerable women like me. It was a relief not to argue with him, but I felt ashamed for falling into his trap. I dreaded the ride home with Marcos, but it surprisingly went smoothly. Seeing him for who he truly was gave me control over our interaction. He behaved decently and accepted my decision to end things. As we drove, I resolved to seek therapy to understand and overcome my vulnerability to him. I'm determined to ensure I never betray Liam again. I've also committed to making amends with him, even if he never learns the truth. Additionally, I've decided to stop taking birth control and embrace the possibility of having children. After finishing her lengthy journal entry, Amelia used the pen as a bookmark, left the book on the table, and headed upstairs to prepare a bath. She brought the cordless phone along in case I called. She filled the tub, added bath oil, and lit some candles before easing herself into the warm water. She closed her eyes, trying to relax but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She glanced around but saw no one. Resuming her relaxation, she pondered how to mend things with me after her involvement with Marcos. An hour later, feeling slightly better, she got out of the bath and prepared for bed, her mind still swirling with thoughts of how to fix the mess she had made. I watched as Amelia returned to the kitchen after transferring the laundry to the dryer. She sat down at the table to review her journal entry, but was puzzled to find the pen missing from where she had left it. She distinctly remembered placing it in the book, but then she spotted it near the wicker basket. Retrieving the pen, she opened her diary to read once more. Sunday morning, Amelia woke up feeling refreshed and ready to start anew. She spent the morning cleaning, took a long shower, and dressed in an outfit I always liked. By mid-afternoon, she was sitting at the kitchen table, enjoying a cup of coffee while a roast cooked in the oven. Her peaceful afternoon was interrupted by a knock at the side door. Seeing two burly men outside, one in a police uniform and the other in a suit holding a police ID, her surprise quickly turned to alarm. "I'm Detective Robinson, and this is Officer Clark from the Springfield Police Department. We're looking for Liam Miller. Is he home?" Amelia, trying to mask her unease, responded, "Liam's at work right now. I was worried when I saw you. I'm his wife, by the way. Maybe I can help?" After exchanging a look, Detective Robinson suggested, "It's pretty cold out here. May we come in?" "Of course, come on in," Amelia said, leading them into the kitchen. "Why are you looking for Liam? He isn't hurt, is he?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "No, nothing like that. As far as we know, your husband is fine. We just need to speak with him about a case we're working on. Are you sure he's at work?" Detective Robinson inquired. "Yes, he is," Amelia replied, walking to the counter to retrieve the note I had left. Handing it to the detective, she added, "You can read his message. He left it for me when I got back from my trip last night." Officer Clark positioned himself by the back entrance, keeping a watchful eye. After reading the note, Detective Robinson asked, "May I keep this, Mrs. Miller?" "No, I'm afraid not," Amelia replied firmly. Detective Robinson handed it back, and continued. This morning we received a homicide report. The call was traced to your husband's cell phone. We're working with his carrier to pinpoint his location at the time. Relief washed over Amelia. There must be a mistake. I tried calling Liam last night when I got home, but his phone was here, she said, pointing to the wicker basket on the table. Detective Robinson looked skeptical. May I see his cell phone? He walked over to the basket and examined it. I don't see a phone here, Mrs. Miller. Are you sure you're not mistaken about the timing? Amelia's face fell as she realized the phone was missing. I don't understand. His phone was here last night, she insisted, her voice rising with frustration and worry. Well, it seems the call traced to your husband's cell phone was made from it, Detective Robinson noted, making a quick entry in his notebook. Is your husband acquainted with Marcos Turner? Amelia's face went pale at the mention of Marcos. I know Marcos Turner, but my husband doesn't. Marcos was my assistant last semester, she explained. So your husband had no reason to dislike Mr. Turner? Are you certain he didn't know him? Detective Robinson pressed. No, Liam never met Marcos, Amelia replied, her panic evident. Detective Robinson made more notes before looking back at her. It appears your husband knew Mr. Turner well enough to report his death, he said calmly. Amelia, shocked, sank into a chair. Marcos is dead? I brought him home with me yesterday around 5:30. How could he be dead? Detective Robinson sat across from her and asked, What was your relationship with Mr. Turner? Could there be a motive for your husband to be involved? Amelia's face turned even paler as she struggled to compose herself. Marcos was just a student. Neither he nor my husband would have any reason to hurt him. Despite her words, her tone was unconvincing. Detective Robinson let the silence hang for a moment before continuing. When we arrived at the address your husband provided, we found evidence of a struggle involving Mr. Turner. A travel bag was left in the hallway, and there were footprints indicating a fight. Detective Robinson continued, It appears Mr. Turner lost the fight and was dragged to the kitchen where he was tied to a chair using nylon straps typically used for electrical wires. Amelia started to weep softly. He was shot in the left knee before being dragged. The medical examiner suspects a major artery was hit, causing significant blood loss. The autopsy is pending, but it seems Mr. Turner suffered multiple blows before dying from a single gunshot to the head. Preliminary forensics suggest he was also shot in the groin post-mortem. The estimated time of death is between 6 and 8 last night. Amelia, her voice shaking, interjected, Liam could never do something like that. That's not who he is. Her tears began to subside, replaced by anger. The detective glanced at his notes. According to state records, your husband has a permit for a .25 caliber semi-automatic pistol. One of the bullets found at the scene matches this caliber, tentatively linking it to his weapon. The motive is still unclear. He rummaged through his folder and placed 3 photocopies on the table. These are copies of photos found at the crime scene. Their positioning suggests Mr. Turner was shown them before he died. Blood splatter indicates they were present at the time of the fatal shot. I don't believe you've been entirely truthful about your connection with Marcos Turner, or your husband's involvement with him, the detective stated firmly. Amelia picked up the photocopies, her expression shifting from shock to horror as she examined them. She began to sob uncontrollably, insisting, No, Liam couldn't have known. Before the detective could continue, his cell phone rang. He remained mostly silent during the 3-minute call, jotting down notes. Meanwhile, Amelia's sobs quieted, and she sat with her hands covering her face, tears streaming down. After ending the call, Detective Robinson looked up at Amelia and said, Your husband's call was traced to Windsor, Ontario. Local authorities worked with the cell phone provider to locate his device, which was found in a bag with credit cards and a .25 caliber pistol registered to him. The bag was discovered in a trash bin at a Walmart parking lot. Neither he nor his vehicle was spotted, but plates matching his car were found in the trash. They believe he might have swapped plates to blend in with Ontario traffic. The news didn't console Amelia, who remained seated, crying inconsolably. After a few minutes, the detective pulled another photocopy from his folder and showed it to her. It depicted a small brass key alongside a ruler. We found this key at the scene. Do you recognize it? Amelia examined the image, then quickly retrieved her purse. She produced a matching key from her wallet and held it next to the photo. She collapsed into the chair, muttering, Diary, Liam. The two men stayed with her for nearly 15 minutes, waiting for her to regain composure. Eventually, they persuaded her to call someone for support. After ensuring her sister would arrive soon, they left. As they walked to their cars, Officer Clark asked, "Do you think they'll catch him soon?" "It depends on how well he can stay hidden. He hasn't committed any crimes in Canada for the past 2 weeks, so the police there might not prioritize his search. If he remains undetected, his chances of being caught diminish over time. If he's still free in 6 months, we might use TV publicity through most wanted shows," the detective explained. Clark considered this before asking, "What do you think about her story regarding the cell phone? She seemed genuine when she said it was there last night." "I agree. I don't think she was lying. My guess is he returned home but didn't go through with his plan. He likely saw his cell phone and took it," the detective replied. "But why wouldn't he tell her he was home?" "It's strange that he'd return just for the phone," Clark said, puzzled. Robinson stopped and looked at him. "Think about it. Liam Miller had just killed someone. The only reason he'd come back home, as far as I can see, is to kill her, and maybe himself. Something must have changed his mind. I doubt he came back just for the phone." Clark nodded thoughtfully. "I think Mrs. Miller will eventually realize how close she came to losing her life and question why she didn't. I wonder how she'll feel about it."